Hi, friends. Happy Wednesday. I don't know where y'all are, but the sun is shining here in Toronto, so it's good vibes. If you know me personally, you know the sunshine makes me happy, so I love it. Love it. Again, for those of you just kind of popping in, we're just waiting a couple of minutes to let people join, and we'll get started. We've got a jam-packed session today with some powerhouse women in tech. My friend Patti, my co-moderator, so excited. And yeah, just a few more minutes and we'll get started. It's a good group so far. Good group so far. Just a little bit of context. If you have questions towards actually during or towards the end, just feel free to drop them into the Q&A box down at the bottom. We will have some time at the end for Q&As, and we'll try to get to all of your questions. If we don't get to the questions at the end, if we're just having a very fluid conversation, we will answer the questions. We'll send them to the panelists after the fact, and then we'll get an email response and distribute to the group following this session. The session is recorded. We will post it on our website and in our member zone for those of you who are co-members. And if you're not co-members, then you should be. Come join the party. Shameless self-promotion. We'll start in about 1 minute. I see a few more people coming in here. We'll start with some intros and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, which will be great. Okay, about 30 seconds and then I'll start. Good showing so far. Okay, friends, you ready? Ladies, we ready? We amped up, we're excited. Happy International Women's Day. It's officially International Women's Day. So I just want to say to all my ladies out there, powerhouses, love you all. We should be supporting and always encouraging our lady friends as well as our male friends. But today is International Women's Day, so I'm just going to focus on the ladies. We should always be supporting and encouraging one another. And I'm so grateful to work with an incredible team of empowered women at COMMB and throughout my industry holistically. Today, we've got some really, really great speakers to join us on this panel. So we are speaking specifically today about women in tech. Again, happy International Women's Day. It's Women's History Month as well for the month of March. So I think that we will see a number of female-led events, which I'm excited about. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amanda Dorenberg. I am the president of COMMB, and this is a series that we have curated called COMMB Talks. It's a webinar series where we bring in some of the most influential voices across multiple industries to talk about various different subjects. And today's subject is women in tech, women in technology. My co-moderator with me is a legend in the industry, and I'm so thrilled. Patti Summerfield. Patti, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm a writer with Media in Canada, and I'd like to welcome you to Let's Talk Women in Tech. Now, that is one sentence I never thought I would ever say. When I started out, women were vigorously discouraged from pursuing careers in science and technology. In fact, I was told writing wasn't a real job and that I was on the road to ruin. Of course, back then, a computer took up one entire room and women began a job knowing they'd be paid less than a man, even if she was the one in charge. That's why I'm so proud to be here today. To add some context, I'd like to say how far women have come. The actual words of wisdom my mother gave me as I left for my first real job are, to look professional, remember to always wear the proper undergarments. that lets you know the differences between then and now. Back to Amanda.
Oh my gosh. Forgive me for laughing because certainly we have come a long way. You're on mute. I think you might have hit your dog mute button, but
Yes. Yes. But yes, it is funny. And there are a lot of differences. Thank
we
goodness.
have come a long way.
Yes.
And I am certainly also very proud to be here with my esteemed panelists. So I'm going to ask each of you to do a bit of an introduction, and perhaps Renata, we can start with you, your name, your company, your position, and a little bit about you.
Thanks, Amanda. So my name is Renata. I'm an associate at CIBC Capital Markets, which is more of the finance economics industry, I guess, rather than tech. But my job is highly dedicated to working with data, with large volumes of data. And I'm leading the project, actually, which is the should bring the innovation to the desk that I'm working on. So that's kind of how I'm involved in the tech world within CIBC.
Amazing. Thank you. And Danielle?
Hello, my name is Danielle Rind. I work at Talent Outdoor. We are an out-of-home advertising agency. My background is in the ad tech or advertising technology space. And so what's one thing that is unique about Talent as an agency is that we actually build and own our own tech. So I have the fun role of being able to interface with our product teams and inform roadmaps and things like that. And then also do a lot of education and evangelization and selling on the client side. So I live in this kind of hybrid world between product and technology, and then everyday common speak, working with clients and things like that.
Love it. Love it. One of our proud members, Azadeh.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Happy International Women's Day. It's so great to be here. I'm Azadeh. I am the head of industry for our brand partnerships at Pinterest here in Toronto, Canada. So my team and I work closely with some of the largest advertisers in Canada to help them bring the best of Pinterest to life and help them meet their business and marketing goals. Many people know Pinterest. It's a favorite app of many a folk who like to use it for moments big and small to plan for those moments. But if you're not familiar, just check it out on the App Store. You might come to love it too.
I hope everyone knows Pinterest. We all have a bunch of Pinterest boards for various different life events that we are planning or have previously gone through. And Gladys, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Gladys COMMB. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of NEAR. We are a global data intelligence company. So our vision is to really inspire people to make better decisions via using data. And so our goal is to provide actionable insights for consumer behavior to our global clients. And I'm based in Pasadena, California. And I have worked my life in tech. I started out being an engineer, and it's my curiosity, one step lead to another, and to lead me to now being a CEO of a tech company.
Congratulations. I love
Thank
it.
you.
Growth from engineer to CEO. I appreciate that. That is a grind right there. It's a grind. Thank you, ladies, so much for participating. Honestly, I know that our guests and those of us, or those who don't join us in this live session, but watch us afterwards, certainly appreciate your time. And I definitely appreciate your time. So I am going to ask the first question, if we can get right into it. Are we ready? We ready for it? Okay. So this one's for Renata. Renata, can you explain a little bit about STEM and how you found success in this area? And for those who are unfamiliar with STEM, maybe give a little bit of background and color on what that is.
Sure. So I think STEM has been around for a very long time. So it's like science, technology, math, engineering, data science, whatever, you can go on and on. And I think now it kind of goes more into even computer science, right? You can consider that. To find success in it, I would say that there are a lot of important parts, right? So you have to first of all, be good at what you're doing. And within yourself, though, I think to have this spark that you find what makes you love this industry. So, and you have to hang on to it during your entire career path, I believe. STEM can be a very daunting, technical, and tedious area of knowledge and career. So it's very important to enjoy to what you're doing. So for me, for example, it's very important. I really always loved putting myself into challenging situations and kind of finding innovative solutions to complex problems that can help my team or I don't know, entire workplace company, right, to find new ways of making the work processes more efficient. So I think that's important. And of course, staying confident. Confidence is the only way I think that can help you push through and find new techniques and new ways to solve these problems.
I love that. And again, just for those unaware, STEM, when we said STEM, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, it is a very common acronym in the tech space, but we wanted to make sure that we give a bit of color for those perhaps less familiar. Patti, I think you had a question, I believe, for Danielle. You're on mute, babe. Patti, we can't hear you.
The doggy buzzer.
Dog buzzer.
Danielle, why did you choose to go into tech? Why do you love it? And tell us a little bit about what you do at Talon.
Yeah, thanks, Patti. I really love to understand how things work. So I like to ask, what and why a lot. It's not enough for me to just, get the answer. This thing solves that thing. I want to understand, what's that in-between process that connects those two dots. And so that's what really kind of sparked my interest in technology, because I love looking kind of behind the scenes and to understand, how do we, why does pushing this button get me to this place? Or why does pushing this button not get me to this place? So understanding that was really something that brought a lot of joy and interest to me. And then the part that, I love to apply to technology is, I'm a very practical kind of logical thinker. And so, I like things to be efficient. I like things to work well. And so working in a product world, I get to inform, how tools and products are going to be used. And I get to problem solve with our developers and our product team in terms of, what's the best route to solve this problem, right? Because there's often multiple ways to get to an answer. And I really love the process of thinking about, what are the different trade-offs of taking Avenue A versus Avenue B, and what's going to be the best solution in the long run. So that's what really sparked my interest. And then in terms of what I do at Talon, like I said in my introduction, I kind of sit between the technology product side of things and our client-facing team. So I think I kind of have this unique area that I get to sit in. Typically, you have, product technology people who speak in product and technology language, and then you have client-facing people. And I've been really fortunate to get to sit in between those two groups and kind of speak both languages, which really, for me, kind of scratches that itch of understanding technology and knowing about products and informing how products work, and then translating that for the use cases that they're going to apply to. So speaking to clients and speaking to team members and helping them understand, how do these products and technologies work? How can you use them to improve your advertising campaigns or your delivery or your understanding? And so that brings me a lot of joy, because I also love teaching, and I love those light bulb moments where you kind of peel back the layers and you see people really understand what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it.
I feel like you kind of get the best of both worlds, because you sit between, like, as you've said, between the product side of things, which is very technically heavy, and you've got engineers that you need to communicate to, but you also have the client side of things. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. And that's a unique skill set where you're able to actually take a highly complex situation and really present it in a way that is accessible, digestible, and approachable. And that's something that is very, very challenging to do, particularly in the tech space. It's like making something that is highly complex feel as though it's welcoming and, not intimidating. So I love that. That's
Yeah, no,
awesome.
you nail on the head, man. That's exactly what I love.
I love that. Gladys, I kind of want to pivot to you. Can you talk to us about Near? So
Mhm.
Near is a data company, but I'd love to understand your history. How did you get to where you are? And give us a little bit of background on Near itself and what you do in your tech role specifically, and kind of some of the challenges from a day-to-day that you experience.
Great. It's going to be a little bit of a long history, but
Okay.
my background, as I said earlier, has always been in tech, and Near is a global data intelligence company, but it started being actually in Singapore. So it started in Singapore, but I actually started a company in the US. Actually, I ran a company in the US, started in about 2012. I actually joined a company called Uber Media as a CTO and built a platform at the time when you see mobile usage was growing. So we look at the amount of data that everybody can access from the mobile device is very different from when we were just dealing with desktop and web. So we took advantage of that and say, how can we help understand consumer behavior better using this data? So we built a platform to make that data easily accessible to a lot of businesses, because when you talk about big data, sometimes you just overwhelm someone that is running a fast food chain or someone that is running a retail store. So we try to make it easy where we ask our partners to outsource the data science and all the infrastructure and work to us. So we built a platform like that in 2015 or so. And about the same time, I got the opportunity to throw my head in the ring to become CEO of the company. And so with the knowledge that I built up, I actually got the opportunity to become CEO of the company. And I ran it for about 7 years, and until 2021, that opportunity came when Near was looking for an acquisition in the US, and we became combined to become a global company. So Near now have a US presence, and Uber Media now has global presence. So together now we are Near. And obviously my love for data hasn't changed, and thank you. And so continue to be very involved, but my day-to-day is quite diverse. I could be on a one call talking to my chief data scientist about a new data model that he invented and wants to deploy it as part of the product. My next call could be solving a corporate issue. So a lot of it is problem solving, which is why I chose computer science in the first place when as my major, because I do like problem solving. Thinking about how to devise an algorithm or a way to solve a problem is not very different today in coming up with listening to what the actual problem is, coming up with a solution with the team. So I like that aspect. I love the constant learning and growing. So that's kind of what led me to where I'm today. Is just when there's an opportunity, it presents itself that I can grow with that opportunity, I take on it. And, one thing led to another, I'm here.
Wow. That's a lot, and it seems like in a very short time. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
I have a question for Azadea. Now, I know you're with Pinterest. I did read your blog post, and I like the pictures of your kids playing outside in the rain. Look like. Can you elaborate how Pinterest is furthering the advancement and support of women in tech?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you kind of the broad strokes and then use a pretty personal example that speaks to that picture that you were mentioning. So there's kind of 3 areas where Pinterest is focused from a advancement and support of women. The first one is expanding representation. The second one is ensuring pay equity. And the third area is creating a work environment where everyone sort of feels this sense of connection and togetherness and belonging. And there's sort of tangible actions, initiatives that, fall into all of these areas. And we can kind of talk about them for a while. But I wanted to share a personal experience, which was at the sort of onset of the pandemic 3 years ago. Schools closed down, everybody went inside. We all remember this. And it was really tricky with 2 small children to kind of balance everything. And I manage a pretty large team. And so I was kind of worried about how we would, do all of it, really. My children couldn't be kind of left alone, clearly. And so, you know, I think it was day 1 or day 2 that I was speaking with our country manager and sort of telling her like the anxiety I had over what was sort of facing like the prospect of this kind of who knows how long schools being closed. And immediately she's like, whatever you need to do to adjust and, you know, be with your children and, you know, ensure they're safe and looked after, you need to do. And so I shared with her the plan that my husband and I had worked out. And basically it was that I would be watching them for half the day and then working half the day and sort of trading off with my partner. And she was like, immediately, there was not even a sort of pause. It was like, absolutely, that's what you have to do. And no one sort of at any point sort of questioned. And so I think it really speaks to the culture of just recognizing that as women, we have a whole life outside of work, and we have responsibilities and a role in the home and a role in other parts of our families that we need to also recognize while we're at work. And so, you know, that's just one personal experience where I just from a cultural and support standpoint really resonated with me.
I think that's something that's so important too, because, you know, women are often we're the leaders in the home, but we can be the leaders in business as well. And we're juggling the two. And, you know, it's a different sort of cultural sensitivity in understanding that it's a different level of pressure that's applied and not intentionally applied by any means. I'm not suggesting that, but, you know, inherently applied, whether it's self-applicable or whether it's sort of culturally applicable, that we have to do both at the end of the day, you know, and sometimes that can be really, really challenging for those, particularly, you know, you're all very successful in your own careers, like you're juggling very, very heavy schedules. And it's a challenge to go to your employer, partner, et cetera, and have these conversations to say, okay, how do we balance this? Like, how do we make this equal? Because I can't do this all on my own.
Yeah, it takes a village.
It does. It does. Renata, we talked about STEM initially, and again, it's an acronym STEM. For those who are looking to get into the tech space, I just want to kind of like change the pace a little bit. For those who are looking to like join us in this tech world as powerful, empowered women in this space, more than being like truly skilled academically, what are we looking for in potential candidates? When you're hiring, when you're building your team, what are we looking for when we want to work in this industry? Aside from simply, I know, you know, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Like what are those, maybe are they non-tangible skills? Like the off the resume skills?
Right. So this question, actually, what Danielle was saying resonated with me a lot, and kind of what I would reply in that sense, where she was saying that she kind of sits in the middle between the product and the client facing. That's where you have to really understand that the company that you are walking into, you can be fantastic in your technical skills. You can be an absolutely outstanding programmer, right? Or data analyst, whatever the hell you're doing. But you cannot really like succeed and enjoy your day-to-day life if you don't really like enjoy the company itself or the industry that you are in, right? So like, say I'm in capital markets, I'm in data analysis, I'm leading the heavy data project, right? I work with different departments on trying to make this project happen. I have my technical skills, but at the same time, you need to be aware of what is needed. You need to enjoy coming into work and love working with the markets. You need to enjoy working with the people. You need to be a team player. So just having that technical skill and a master's degree from the best university in the world is sometimes not enough. Same thing if I'm not talking about capital markets, if you work for NASA, you cannot work for NASA and not love space, for example, you know? So that's a very important factor that the management nowadays looks at. And I had this conversation randomly actually last week with my manager about this, who's also a woman. She's like, we hire tons of people that are from STEM that are very incredible engineers, but if you don't love working these hours, if you don't love being exposed to markets, and don't love the economy in general, for example, like this may not really be it. Another thing I would say that's very important is that you have to keep in mind that all these technical projects, because usually I find working with tech and data involves a lot of innovation, right? And I said it many times already, but I find that you cannot constantly focus on the fact that you think that it's just you and everything is depends on you, right? You have to be a tremendous team player. It's just another big kind of like group project you're working on that you've done many times at college, that you've done many times at school. So that's incredibly important. And yeah, I think that's what I would say.
I love that. I
All
love that. Patti, you and I were talking before this, and you had a great question that I think you wanted to pose to Danielle.
Did I?
Oh, Patti.
Oh, like I really didn't.
Sorry, Renata.
Well, I really like to know how people got where they are today. You know, did you start out saying, this is what I want to do? And so I'd like to find that out from Danielle, and to find out why it's important to diversify teams in technology and business, and what does an inclusive team look like? So that's a lot of questions.
There's a lot.
We're just throwing it all at you, Danielle.
I'll try to keep it condensed. So, I mean, my first job out of college, I think was, I was really lucky, and I recognize that. I graduated college in 2009. So it was a year after, you know, the economy crashed. It was not a great time to be looking for a new job and coming out of school with, you know, almost zero skill set. But, you know, I came from a family that had worked in, you know, white collar jobs and had connections. And so my parents were able to help me network, which then kind of gave me the opportunity to apply for an entry level media planning role. And I did get that job. And then, you know, one thing that I think has surprised me in my career as it's moved forward is that so much more of your career today, in my opinion, I think has to do with, you know, the people that you know and the relationships that you build. And I think that really speaks to how important it is to meet the people around you and to invest in people. But also I think it highlights how easy it is to fall into a silo of being around people who are very similar to you, people who are very like-minded, and people who are on a very similar trajectory. And so, you know, as nice as it is to hire the people that you know and that you've worked with before and who you have experience with, it can also be a little bit of a trap in that you're not expanding and you're not kind of growing the pool of the people that you're working with and the diversity within your teams. And I think that's why, you know, we're at the place where we are today in terms of STEM, and why we see fewer women in STEM is because people continue to hire the people they know and want to work with the people that they're familiar with and have experience with. And so one of the reasons, as nice as that is, as easy as it is to work with people who you worked with before, there are some detriments to it, right? Each of us, I think, develops our own knowledge and, you know, logic and an approach to business based off of our experiences. And those experiences are going to differ based off of where we're from, the jobs that we've had, where we've grown up, the homes we've grown up in. And so what that means is that when you grab a group of people who are diverse in terms of their backgrounds, they're going to also bring to the table really different ways of thinking and different approaches to problem solving. And so that diversity in terms of how you're thinking and problem solving, especially in tech, when you're building products and solving problems, is hugely important. And Amanda, I think I was mentioning to you on the phone when we connected the other week, there's this example that I love from a book called Invisible Women. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. It's super interesting. It's about the data gap in data collection around gender. And it's written by this woman called Caroline Criado Perez. And she has this one example about VR technology, right? So virtual reality, like you know, your Oculus, you put on your goggles. And it's known, or it's been found, that VR technology tends to create motion sickness at a much higher rate in women than in men. And there wasn't really an answer as to why. And so some people at Microsoft did some research, and they found a couple of things. The first is that the way that we as humans perceive depth perception, there's two ways that we do that. VR technology is really good at imitating one of those ways, but really bad at imitating the second way that we kind of understand depth perception. And it also turns out, once further research was done, that men tend to rely more heavily on that first approach when understanding depth perception, and women rely more heavily on that secondary approach. And so basically what we have is this technology that's been developed and built that is kind of specifically for men, that's built for,
Wow.
the way that men perceive the world. And I think, one of the reasons that things like that happen is because when you have this homogenized team of maybe only male developers, they're testing it on themselves, they're testing it on each other. They're not getting that other perspective and that other experience. So there's no one there to say, hey, this actually makes me really nauseous. And so I think that's like a really tangible example of the detriments that we can run into when we lack diversity in our teams, and especially in technology and product.
I honestly adore that. That's a real world example. And, it is true. I mean, technology is dominated by predominantly men. And are they coming to, are they exiting the circle of the engineers? And I come from, like, my educational background is computer programming, and I took a BA in marketing media after that. But, I'm glad it's not dissimilar to you. I'm an engineer by trade, if you will. But there's very few of us. So, when you're ideating and when you're building these products and you're building these services, and it's really focused on like one particular trigger from a brain cell perspective, frankly, or a neurological perspective, like that's so interesting. Azadeh, what are you guys working on from a product perspective in this? Like, do you have opinions on this? Like, I want to hear about this because I know you're always innovating, but I'm curious, what are you guys working on that maybe falls in line?
So I can definitely speak to that. So our mission at Pinterest is to bring everyone the inspiration to create a life they love. And so when we say everyone, we mean everyone. And so a big part of, to Danielle's exact example, that diversity of the team really does play a huge role in how we think about bringing product to everyone. So there's a number of examples. One I'll share with you is specific to skin tone ranges. And one thing we found was that, and when I say we, I mean our product team, our engineers, was that when people were searching for beauty related inspiration on Pinterest, they often had to qualify with their skin tone range in the search itself. And so one example of how we brought this inspiration to everyone within our product was rolling out skin tone ranges within beauty searches, so that when you're making a beauty search on Pinterest, say you're looking for, makeup inspiration, you don't need to qualify your skin tone any longer. Within the search itself, you'll be able to select a skin tone range right underneath the search, and then it will immediately refresh the results so that you're only seeing results and images that are relevant to you and that are personalized to the skin tone that you've selected.
I love this.
So that's
you customize the algorithms to basically say, hey,
exactly,
based on
so that you don't have to write, like
Yeah.
medium skin tone range beauty ideas, which is like cumbersome. So
It can be.
that's one example. And so, yeah, I mean, that's one example. I don't know if you want me to sort of, because I think you mentioned, Patti, like, are there any goals, any programs, any results? I'm happy to share that as well.
Yeah. Jump in, do it. Share your voice.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I mentioned, there's a lot of different sort of initiatives and goals at Pinterest. So as one example, and specifically to results, we do hold ourselves accountable to those goals. Half of the Pinterest workforce, Pinployees as we're called, are women or self-identify as women. And we also are in this past year, we met our leadership, women in leadership goal, which is currently at 36%, and we're looking to continue stretching that. So that would be an example of like really setting tangible goals. And this, in this case, with regards to representation amongst not just our workforce, but also our executive team and leadership team, and sort of striving and holding ourselves accountable to that.
That's awesome. Love that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, it's really cool. Patti, you and I were talking earlier and you were curious about NEAR's diversity. I think you had a question on that.
Yes. So Gladys, how does NEAR manage diversity? It's a big issue right now in the industry. And I'd like to know how you are handling it.
Yeah.
You're a global company now.
Yeah,
Gladys.
so it's so by nature of bringing a US company, an Asian company, and we also have a European company that came together as one NEAR, one company, we have a lot of cultural diversity. And one way to manage that is to understand and make sure we listen and have a lot of empathy for each other, and context is important. Sometimes, a lot of times we try to get something done and we jump to the conclusion of something. But I think as we try to build a team that works together globally, taking that time to understand context, build understanding and communication is very important. And then we also have a focus on gender diversity as well. Being a tech company is challenging, right? But sometimes, even if it takes longer for us to find, for instance, a female data scientist, we do try to take longer to see enough candidates before we move a decision, because it's often harder to start something, and you have to start somewhere. Once you have a healthy amount of female, it attracts other diverse candidates, but you have to start somewhere. And so having that initiative where even if it takes us longer to see enough candidates, but we take the time to do so to build up a well-balanced workforce, that's something that we try to do in different regions, and making sure that we maintain a healthy ratio of gender in the company.
Actually, like, honestly, Gladys, like, it couldn't be more of a perfect segue into kind of the next topic that I wanted to speak about, which is advice. Like, how do we encourage others to get into this? And you kind of hit the nail on the head in the sense of like, it does take a lot longer to find, let's call it, diverse groups within tech, particularly women in tech, and you know, it's a male dominated industry, and notwithstanding, there's so many incredible talents, but sometimes patience, we need to exercise our patience. So I want to just shift a little bit to perhaps, you know, we've got 20 minutes left in this panel, and for those listening who are inspired by you powerful women in this space, who want to get into the tech space, who want to get into whether it's ad tech, whether it's engineering, whether it's software development, whether it's capital markets and data science, like, doesn't matter. Let's talk about some advice. So what kind of advice can we give to the next generation? What kind of advice can we give to those who are currently struggling to try to find roles? Renata, can you give us any advice for, you know, how you got into this space? You know, we talk about, you know, where STEM is the acronym, but what can you give us? And then we'll go kind of round table.
Right. So I'm pretty early in my career here as well. So I have an interesting kind of roller coaster of a career path, how I landed at capital markets. So did my education like standard, you know, like master's in economics and finance, bachelor economics and finance. Then I somehow ended up in crypto. I was there for over a year. And again, like Danielle said, I love referring to Danielle clearly, but I basically, like, through network, you know, and connections, I got a position at CIBC in capital markets. And I think that's kind of like, you have to understand that you have to constantly keep pushing, right? Like, you can go through all kinds of, you can get deep past, but like you derooted, but you always have to believe in what you want to achieve. You have to know what you like about this industry, and like confidently move forward. And advice wise, I think I would say just to be prepared for pushback, because it will always be there. And just knowing how to deal with it and is a learned skill. Nobody is just casually born with it. So it's very important to find mentors, to find supportive people that can have the same vision as you, and you know, support you along the way, because moving tech and working in tech, it's a very hard industry to be in. What I try to do probably is to talk to my superiors. I'm lucky enough to have a wonderful female leader in my team, and she's incredibly supportive and incredibly smart. So that is important. And just never, like, there will be tons of people that probably will tell you that you cannot do this, that they tried and they failed, or someone else tried and they failed. And again, just stick to that spark that you enjoy doing the most and keep doing it.
I love it. It's like the stay true to yourself kind of vibe. And for those of you who are on the call who know me personally, if someone tells me no, you can't do that, I'm going to go and do that 10 times over.
Yeah, and it's important to have that attitude. I find not a lot of people, especially girls, have that. It's like never to be scared. If you have any, like, even if you really don't have that background and whatever, you can look it up, you can learn it. You know, just follow whatever you like doing, follow that spark of yours.
I love it. Patti, do you want to jump in? Some
Yes,
Sure.
I would like to find out from Danielle if she has any advice for women wanting a career similar to hers, but also what does it mean to be a leader in tech?
Yeah, I would just say ask questions. I mean, that's something that I preach all the time in kind of everything that I do, because I think there's oftentimes this notion in business of, you know, you're supposed to know everything, but nobody knows everything, right? And when we don't ask questions and when we're not sharing information, we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to our teams and our company. Because, you know, the question you might have can uncover something that other people might not know or have thought of. And, you know, and I think it's also really okay, and also really endearing to see people admit what they know and what they don't know. And especially when you have leaders doing that and saying, you know, I don't know everything, or I don't have the answer to this, or what is that? You know, this is your specialty or your domain. Can you explain it to me? And I think we're missing that in a lot of different groups and teams. And so, you know, my advice would be to not only ask questions, but also to align yourself with leaders and people who are interested in your education and your growth, and are, you know, want you to, you know, develop your career. And so then, you know, from the flip side, what does it mean to be a strong leader in tech? I think it's doing exactly that. It's being approachable. It's approaching your employees and your team members and your, you know, collaborators with kindness and with interest. You know, because we're here to work together. And I think it's also to let the other people around you shine. So once you get to a certain stage, I think all of the women here are very obviously intelligent, confident, you know, great at their jobs. And I think when you get to that point, it's time to kind of try to step back a little bit and let your team and let the people around you who are still developing their career show up for themselves and show up for the rest of the group, and give them that space and encouragement to really shine and highlight their own abilities and strengths and knowledge.
Love that. I love it. I'm going to open this up to both Azadeh and Gladys. So Azadeh, I'll ask you first, like, what are your words of advice and inspiration? Because it is, you know, it's a space that's challenging, and, you know, there's a lot of issues that we struggle with daily. So I think that we want to hear inspirational advice.
Yeah, I was just thinking back, like in particular with regards to facing gender related sort of barriers. One of the things that reflecting, at the moment, I didn't realize that I was facing those roadblocks. And it wasn't until a lot later that I sort of reflected back and realized it. And I think it's challenging when you don't necessarily fit into the dominant culture of the existing workplace. There is a lot of unconscious bias, and sometimes it's even like sort of more covert things, like comments I recall, like you don't have the executive presence to be a leader, or you don't have what it takes to be a this or that, and it's very vague
Forgive
statements.
my like overt eye roll there.
Yeah, it's just like they can be damaging, they can they're not helpful in any way.
No.
And I realized that, like, thinking back, I didn't fit the mold at the time, potentially was part of that. And I think there's also this fallacy, especially with women in leadership, that there's a mold of like powerful, confident, dominant, aggressive, and that's fine, and that's good for some people and how they work, but there's also leadership qualities such as caring, kindness, helpful, supportive, that are just as effective and sometimes even more so. And I
also
think it's
feel like to your point, Azadeh, like as a female leader, we've got not just a gender bias, but we also have an age bias. Like, okay, well, you're a female, but you're also too young to be in this role. You're too this to be in this role. And, the fact that you're in that role, it must mean that you're cutthroat. Like you don't have a soul. You don't care about people. So there's so many different levels to this to unpack.
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying. I apologize.
Honestly, to jump in and add to what you were saying about like caring and kindness and everything, it's funny, I saw a quote today. If you're a leader and nobody is walking behind you, you're just going on a walk. So like so basically that's where it comes to, like caring about people and actually listening to their concerns and not just being this cutthroat individual, that is just only business. You have to treat them like your family to some extent, right?
It's so true. It's so true. Gladys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I think when I first talked to you about this panel, Amanda, I told you the reason I like to speak about women in tech or anything related to women in leadership roles is I have 2 daughters. I have a son and 2 daughters. When I look at the outlook for my son, I don't feel he's limited in any way of whatever he chooses to do. But I feel for my daughters that maybe if they don't see more role models in tech, they don't see more role models in women that are CEOs, maybe they would feel limiting in what they can achieve in their life. So I think for all of you who have achieved some tech career and that you have experience to share, you should all be very vocal and share that, because that inspires the next generation of little girls that are thinking what they're going to do when they grow up. And they just need to see more role models that are successful, that role models that have overcome whatever it is to be in tech and to be a leader in tech. I think it's as simple as that to me, because I remember early on in my career, I was on the show floor at CES. I was the VP of engineering. I led the team that built the robots. I was standing next to my colleague who's the head of marketing. Every single question that comes to me was marketing. Every tech question went to him. And I was like, what does it take for people to know? At least it should be 50-50 chance that there's only 2 people to ask. So I just think that there needs to be more women that shows the next generation that they can also be in tech, and that would inspire them to be more open-minded and when they choose their career.
I love this. Okay, so we have 10 minutes left. Patti, I'm going to throw to you to ask, maybe I'm going to say the final question, and then we've got 6 questions that are in the Q&A, which we will get to. So Patti, do you want to ask one of the final questions on our list of Q&A that we had planned to discuss?
Well, the one question I have is for Gladys, and how does NEAR improve decision making?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, data, I am a very strong proponent of using data, even though I think when you make a decision, experience matter. Gut feeling, a lot of people say, not that it doesn't matter, but it cannot hurt if you have data on your fingertips. So it always enhances your decision when you're informed. And so I'm a strong proponent of that, and that's the business Near is in, is to provide insights, especially actionable insights to help businesses make better decisions.
Okay, so we've got 9 minutes left. We've got 6 questions in the Q&A. All anonymous, appreciate the anonymity. So first question, open to anyone who wants to answer this, who is comfortable answering it. How do you think women in tech can inspire and support the next generation of women to pursue careers in this particular field? Open to anyone who speaks first.
I'll start, as I started earlier to say, I think by just merely sharing our experience, what obstacle we have overcome, to let people know, hey, there might be obstacle in your way, but there's always a way to break it down into smaller problems and to solve them. And just hearing someone who's been there and done that will help encourage the next generation.
I think having 2 young daughters, that is beautiful advice. Any of the other 3 panelists, would you like to comment on that question?
Probably say that we think STEM is this like dry, boring kind of, always numbers, and everyone is always for some reason scared of numbers. Actually, I was scared of them before. I always
Love math.
I was convinced in school that I'm not going to be good at it, and it turned out pretty well. But I think it's just very important to kind of like make it fun and show that it can be fun. So for me, what I found fun in it when I was trying to first code and program, and when I coded like a little whatever was moving on the screen, that just blew my mind, and I was just like, this is not so bad, like I just did it. So again, it kind of ties to what Gladys was saying, right, to share our experiences, to give example, but yeah, just to bring, if we're talking about younger generation especially, right, to like show that this is not just this like crazy rocket science that people work with, that it's small steps and they can be pretty enjoyable after all.
I also feel like, the term tech is intimidating because it's often attributed to like very linearly focused, like engineering roles or programming, data science, statistics, mathematics, all like it kind of has this sort of predisposed perception that it is very intimidating. And Danielle, I loved, and Azadeh, I also love your roles because you're hybrids. You know what I mean? Like not to say that Renata and Gladys, you're not hybrids, but Azadeh and Danielle, you have a little more client-facing opportunities. And so I think that makes it a little more welcoming. It makes it a little more approachable, where it's like, hey, we can be nerdy and we can like jam out in the back room on math and data science, and yeah, we can do that, but at the end of the day, it's also approachable. Like it's really fun, it's really cool. So I think that's something, Renata, to your point, from a cultural perspective, that as an industry we need to break a barrier to say, hey, it's not just like we're sitting in a back room like pumping code out and all of these different languages that are very intimidating. I think that the approachability side of things is something from a cultural perspective that could help the next generation in the aforementioned question. So another question that came in is, and again, open to anyone willing to answer, what do you think some of the biggest challenges faced by women in the tech industry today? Sorry, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges faced by women in tech in the industry today? And what steps should be taken to overcome these?
I can jump in. So I think Gladys just had a great example, which is that bias that you see a lot. And so one thing that I would recommend is calling out bad behavior when you see it. And that can be really challenging. And I'm not saying call people out and be confrontational. I think you can approach people with information and in a very kind and gentle way, because typically people don't mean to, look to the male colleague for tech and the female for marketing. They don't think about it. It's not intentional. I was on a call recently with a colleague and I had a cold and my voice, I was losing my voice. And this colleague of mine had a really loud, booming voice. And he was asking me questions and then he kept speaking over me to answer. And I was so frustrated with it. And so I kind of took a deep breath and I sent him a message, like I slacked him on the side and just said, hey, I know you're probably not noticing this, but I would really appreciate it if you would be a little bit more mindful about speaking over me. And it was something that I had heard him do to other colleagues. And he didn't realize, and he got, he was, I think, a little embarrassed by it, but, I tried to position it in a way that was not accusatory, that was not like, you're a terrible person. It was just like, hey, you probably didn't notice this. And I'm just, just pointing it out if you could maybe shift. So I think it's really important to just try to call things out when you see them, because in the moment is like the best time to do that, to try to shift and help people notice their potential biases.
I love that. I love that. There are two questions in the chat that are directed at me personally. For those of you who want to hear about my personal story, just please ping me. You can do it anonymously or non-anonymously. We can have a conversation. The question, I'll state the questions. Would love to hear about Amanda's journey in the male-dominated out-of-home industry. And Amanda, how did you specifically get into tech? Happy to answer those. This session is not about me specifically, it's about these beautiful ladies. I will answer those questions if you reach out to me directly, because these are anonymous questions. I don't know who you are. Please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to give you my story and any information you'd like to know. We have 3 minutes left, ladies. There is one final question. Any experiences or words of inspiration that you could share with our little girls and our young youth to encourage them into STEM? Anything that stands out from your childhood specifically that pushed you towards a career in STEM?
I can speak to this in a really kind of just, it's a bit of a simple maybe answer, but really encouraging girls and young women to do things that scare them a little bit and make them uncomfortable, and that feeling being okay. It's actually maybe a good thing, because it means you're stretching and you're pushing yourself, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be sort of this magical thing right at the beginning. There might be challenges and sort of stumbles along the way, but that's learning and that's growing. And so just encouraging that and saying it's okay to stumble and fail. It's part of the learning experience.
I would say, if you've been in a little kid's classroom, you would say whenever a teacher asks a question, 90% of the boys raise their hand, whether they have the right answer or not. But just because someone acts more confidently doesn't know they know everything. So I would encourage women, even though you don't know anything, it's okay. No one actually ever knows everything. So just be comfortable with that and just keep moving forward. If you don't know something, be curious, learn and educate yourself and improve. That's the way to keep going, not to be afraid of something because you don't know all about it.
I love that. Okay, so that's going to be our final commentary for today. We're at 3:59 p.m. I'm very cognizant of everyone's time, my panelists' time. Patti is my co-moderator. All of you who joined us on this very important topic today, thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate you listening to our voice, hearing our stories, being curious about our stories. If you want to hear more about any one of these beautiful, powerful, successful women, please reach out either to COMMB or directly to our panelists. Sorry, I'm just going to throw that out there, ladies. Just reach out to them. I do encourage communication, collaboration, mentorship, and we're here to help. It's a very important topic. 4 p.m. on the dot. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for
everyone
having us.
who joined. Thank you, Patti.
Thank you.
And everybody have an amazing, amazing rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.